All right, I'd like to explain a little bit about some of the math. We're going to be covering a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of math. We'll be covering some math during the course, but not enough that I want you to get freaked out about. But let me kind of go through a couple of things with you. Look at this formula here. A times B equals C. It is really the formula that is a very simple algebraic formula. If you multiply A times B, you get C. So obviously, that's the substituting numbers in there for it. And we're going to substitute one more thing. We're going to substitute a P for the C and R for the A. So what we have is rate, base, and when you have those two, you multiply them together, just as it shows here. So put 2 times 4 equals 8. It's fairly simple. So this would be our A, B, and C. Now, we are not always going to have a full number. I'll explain that when we talk about percentages. But in this same formula, we can, if we don't have either the rate or the base, but we do have C, or what we would call the part, we can figure out what the other one is by simply dividing 4 into 8, and you can see that it would give you 2, so it goes in 2 times. If I had the rate and I had the part, I would divide the 2 into the 8, and I come up with 4. So this is the one that's going to get a little bit tricky here when we get down to it, this right here. Because what we're looking at here is a whole number. When we talk about percentages, we're really discussing parts of a number. So let me go to the next slide. It might make it easier for us to understand this a little bit more. So if we get the next slide here. Sorry, I gotta clear this off. All right, so if we go to this next slide here, we can see that if you had $1, it's 100 cents, 100 pennies. That's 100%. When we use rate, most of the time we're talking about something less than 100%. So if we had 90 cents or 90 pennies, that's 90%. Same thing with 80 and so forth. So look at it this way. We had a pie, we divided 100 pieces, that's 100% of the pie. Every time we took one of these pieces out, it's a little bit less of the pie. So when we're figuring rates out, oftentimes we're using a percentage which is less than 100%. On very few occasions, we'll be talking about more than 100%, but most of the time, it's a number less than 100%. So how do you convert from a percentage to a decimal point? Well, you simply take the percentage and you move it two places to the left. So as an example here, 80% would be, you take the period here, move it 2 places over to here, and now you have 0.8. So we go to the next problem here, or the next page here. So I put this into a 6%. So we have the same formula that when we have the rate and the base, we multiply them together, or if we have the rate and the part, we divide the rate into the part or the base into the part to get that. Now here's what I mean about this gets a little bit complicated. Most of the time, we're thinking about the part as smaller than the base. And when you get a problem, you can often look at which one's the smaller one and figure the smaller one is the part that goes on top. So this is 6%. So to create 6%, all you have to do, or create it in a decimal point. Most calculators you can divide, you can multiply times percent. But if you had to do it without that, you just move it 2 decimal points to the left and it will get you the same place as that. Let me just try to spotlight this a little bit. So again, our 6% becomes 0.06. So when you multiply 0.06 times, let's say 200,000, what you're going to come up with 12,000. So you take your calculator out and do it yourself, you'll see that happens. If I had the part, 12,000, and I knew that the base was 200, if I divide the base into the part, 12,000, it would give me back to this 0.06 or 6%. So most of our problems are going to be centered around these things. So we go back to the first slide. is most of it's going to be rate times base equals part. Part goes on the top, rate and base. If you have the rate and base, multiply them together. If you have the part, you divide it by the base, or you divide it by the rate, and you come up with the right answer.